Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us today. On today's episode of the Online Business Show, we're going to be talking about Daniel and his background running a marketing agency as a young entrepreneur. But before we jump into the meat and the guts of it all, I would love to ask you to introduce yourself and just explain from your perspective what you do, your background, why you've kind of come down this road.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, thanks for having me. And I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Daniel Bolton. I'm co-owner of ABDB Management. We go around local businesses in Sunderland and Newcastle, and we do all the social media and online side of their sort of businesses. We've got 5 clients on board right now. We started midway through 2023, but we started learning how to run it in around 2020 lockdown period.
Amazing. So, I mean, I have to ask, if you don't mind sharing for people to know, I'm talking about young entrepreneurship. How old are you? Can you share with the audience?
Yeah, so I'm 17 and the partner I run it with is also 17, but he turns 18 in 12 days. So he's almost an adult now.
He's
But yeah,
counting
we're
it
both
already.
17. Yeah.
Okay, and the reason why I'm so intrigued by this is because I started my freelance business really young. I started it to get experience, though, from a very different perspective to yourself. I never dreamed of running an agency. I had no idea what an agency would even look like. Probably because the industry wasn't so far along, I suppose, when I was getting started. But yeah, at
Yeah.
18, I started freelancing and like volunteering even with local businesses to help them on their social media. But what was the driver for you? Like, what made you want to do this when you could just be working in vans on the weekend?
Yeah.
Like, in
Yeah.
most of them, I'm sure your classmates do. What's driven
Yeah.
you to do this?
Well, me and the partner I run it with have been absolutely obsessed with having our own business for years. I mean,
Yeah.
late 14 years old, early 15, we were trying to run our own businesses, whether that was wash and drives, reselling clothes at one point. And like, as you can imagine, at such a young age, a lot of them are there, sort of failed. But it's always been a dream of ours. And that's why, like, I'm so happy now and I'm so proud of what we've built because it was through a lot of past failures. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We've just been obsessed with it our entire lives. And he works now, and I used to have a part-time job as well. So we're not too far different, of course, but it's just always been something we've been absolutely
Yeah.
obsessed.
That's so interesting. I wonder why. Was it just like out of curiosity and a bit of a hobby, or was it something that maybe, is there a family background of entrepreneurial? Like, what pushed you down this road, do you think?
It's always just been something I've wanted to do. Like, I wanted to be a content creator when I was a kid, but that was all
Okay.
because I saw these YouTubers making loads of money. Like, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
always wanted. And we sort of just found out one day. We live in Sunderland, and a lot of the businesses in Sunderland don't have sort of big social media presence that you'd
Yeah.
see firms in London having, firms in Manchester having, for example. They've already got social media managers. And when we looked at all of their social media pages, we sort of thought this isn't managed or ran
Yeah.
very well. The content's quite sloppy. You can tell it's sort of in the back burner. They don't really care about it that much. And at that time, we had our own car page. And at that time, we were getting around 40,000 views per reel. And we thought if we can apply this to their business, we could like provide some really impressive results. And we started to go in and we started to say, our basic sort of thing was you're running your account, your business account, like you'd run a personal account. And they are
Yeah.
very different things. And we can run your business account like an actual business account. And then once we got our first client on, it sort of was like a snowball effect because we've
Yeah.
got these results for this client. We can do the same for you. Okay. And then we do the same for them. We've done the same for these 2 clients. And it sort of just snowballed
Yeah.
up into more and more because it is something that a business wants.
Yeah, no, I rate that. And I think a lot of the people watching this will relate, like, will be social media managers, will be marketing agency owners, and will be like, yeah, I agree. Like, this is why we got down this road. And same for myself. Like, I've had my agency for nearly 7 years now. And
Oh,
when I think about it, the audience I work with now is very different than the audience I started with. And it was very much the same as what you said when I first started out. I was in my local area. My grandparents had run a pub when I was growing up, and I remember them like trying to market and having not a
yeah.
clue
Yeah.
how to approach it. And I saw the same in the community, right? Like I could walk down the high street and be like, I've never heard of this place before. And like
Yeah.
I'm not see it online anyway. So I relate. I think lots of the smaller towns and even smaller cities around the UK are still like
Yeah,
catching up,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
and balancing those priorities of like the business owner
Yeah,
trying to probably know that they should be on social, but not knowing how to approach it.
yeah. I mean, we went to a business one time. This was very early days, so I'd go and I'd print out a bunch of letters. We'd print a bunch of letters out and we'd walk around Sunderland. It was just like a basic A4 piece of paper.
Yeah.
Tie them up, it would be freezing. Me and my friend go out, handing them out place to place to place. And one of them was like, why on earth would I want my business to be big on Instagram? I've already got this company and they put us in the radio and newspaper. And I was just thinking, well, the radio and newspaper,
Costs a
who are you
fortune
gonna
and you have very
who's
little
looking
data from. It's like crazy.
exactly who's looking at the newspaper and thinking, yeah, I'll go there, compared to Instagram, where everyone's already on it anyways. Why don't you put yourself out of the newspaper where only a few people are reading it, put yourself in social media where everyone's there already? You may as well target them
Yeah.
because they're already there instead of no one who reads the newspaper. I just thought they'll be paying way more for that service anyways, because I can imagine still getting in the radio is a high cost. Yeah, I suppose you just got to let some people be, and especially in such a, I mean, Sunderland is still quite a fairly big city, and I wouldn't say we're really, really far behind, but some people are going to have a very, business owners are going to have a very fixed mindset of sort of like, this is what we've done our entire life. We've got on the radio, we've
Yeah.
done this. We don't really want to adapt and do all these new things when they know nothing about Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, maybe Facebook. It's a risk. And some
Mm.
people just aren't willing to take that. But the people who do see a lot bigger results than the people who don't.
I'd honestly flip it. I think the risk is in not doing it
Yeah.
in today's day and age. Like it's
Yeah.
risky to think that your brand alone and like your history would be enough
Yeah.
to keep it
Exactly.
going.
Exactly. But
Mm.
I just don't think they realize it's hard when they've had such a fixed mindset. I'd say they've been running a business for 20 years. For the
Yeah.
last 20 years, they've consistently been the radio and newspaper, and they're making like they're doing all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They've got such a fixed mindset because that's worked in the past.
I would love to talk a little more about your perspective of how to build an agency and how you've built brand awareness and the strategies that you've put into play. Like that is fascinating to me because I think first off, you've got an awful lot to balance compared to a lot of other people who are
Yeah,
starting up a business, even those of the people watching who are side hustlers. Like there is maybe one other main responsibility that they have. They have their job and then they come home of an evening and they have their side hustle that they can focus on. And most of the time, as you get a bit older, social is fewer and further between. You'll see your friends far less frequently, right?
yeah,
But when you're
yeah,
young, I feel like the plates to juggle are school, work,
yeah,
building a business, keeping up
yeah.
with your friends, not missing out on that like that teenage years and those experiences as well. And no, I'm not trying to just like blow your trumpet and say how great you're doing, but I am really impressed by this and I want to dive
Thank you.
into what you're doing. You know, you're so welcome. So I guess to phrase this as a question and to give you something to come back with, I would love to know, like, what challenges have you faced when you're building your agency and you're trying to grow it, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, first, like I say, there's certainly challenges like that come along with this, especially when we are juggling other things. And I mean, I do still spend time like to do other things. I'm never like completely rushed off my feet, but it's certainly a lot more busy. There's certainly a lot more things to think about, like than before. And I've never had to go out and buy a diary to make sure I remember to do this and I remember to do that. So yeah, it's certainly harder, but I'd argue that it's not that hard once you get used to it. Like
Yeah, adjustment.
have to find ways to double up on things. For example, tonight it's my nana's 70th birthday tonight,
Oh,
and she's having a party, and we're going to the town. And we're actually going to one of the places that we manage. So when I'm down there, I'll be shooting content at the same time. And yeah, like going through the school day, it's coming up to A levels now, 13 weeks away. So I
good
have to come
luck.
home, revise. And the way I do it is when I'm on the bus to school and on the bus back, that's where I'm managing and I'm doing things. I'm boosting engagement. I'm messaging people. And that's how I
Yeah.
sort of balance it. It's people say it's hard to find time. Like, oh, I come to work and then I go home and then I've got to go to the gym. Now I've got this. But there's always small little pockets of time I've found where I was literally doing nothing. I'd sit on the school bus an hour to school and listen to music, come home from school, listen to another hour of music, and then I'd complain that I didn't have any spare time. It's like I didn't need to sort of be sitting down at a desk in order to work. And that's something that I
Yeah.
just had to kind of tell myself and look at my day-to-day routine and think, I can fill this moment with work. I can fill this moment with work. And that's just how we've sort of went about it. And my friend, he works a part-time job as well. He works especially hard because he's doing sort of night shifts at the weekend. I mean, he was
Oh
working till
God.
4 a.m. last night, and he's got up and he's back working for A levels. So it can get quite hectic sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's nice to just relax, and it does make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And in terms of then things that you've been able to put in place, what strategies have you found most effective for kind of building your brand awareness, getting people to understand what your agency is and that you even exist, and that like credibility that you need to get someone to be able to say, yes, let me sign up with you.
Yeah, definitely. So what built our credibility the most was just going into a business and particularly ones that we enjoyed already. And then we'd go in and would just be friendly, completely friendly, because we already like the place. I mean, why would you want to manage somewhere that you're not actually impressed with and you
Yeah.
won't want to go yourself? It's going to be hard to advertise something when you can't even advertise it yourself. You know what I mean? So we'd go in there, be friendly, be polite, of course, but I'd argue that's just standard, but always offer to go the extra mile. There's a lot of places in Newcastle who do social media management, but the big firms, and it's very sort of fixed in the way they do things. You couldn't message them and say, "Can you quickly come down tomorrow to do a content shoot? We need it desperately. We need this desperately. We need you to do this desperately." Because they'd be like, "No, you paid for this, this, and this. You're getting this, this, and this." And one day I think we will be more like that. But at the minute,
Mhm.
our flexibility is sort of definitely what gives us credibility and like great like customer satisfaction, I suppose you could say, because we're flexible. We can come down and we can do something as soon as they need it. And that's just going to make us more reliable than these bigger firms who are just doing fixed price, fix this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I will say word of warning there though, from experience, from I can guess mistakes made,
Yeah.
definitely put those boundaries in sooner than you think you need to. Because you're right. Oh, early on, having flexibility is one of the biggest like ticks in your box versus some of the more structured, bigger companies. Like even I'm from South Wales, and when you think about the Cardiff agencies, they're relatively small in comparison to the London agencies, but it was like a staggered line, right? Like I was a freelancer, I could offer a lot more flexibility. The Cardiff agencies were slightly more structured. A London agency would be massively more structured. And it's like the size of the business, the staff that you have, the outgoings, all these other things add up. But I had people take advantage of it because I
Yeah.
didn't have as strong of a boundary in place from the love of it mostly and from like wanting to
Yeah.
help. But it is a tough one. Every now and
Yeah.
then someone will overstep that mark. It's like a whatever it takes approach, right? Like if they
Yeah.
need it, they like, okay, if we really need this to make sure that we can get your calendar out and it's up to scratch, like we're gonna have to do it. So the other side of that then, apart from the credibility, is the awareness and people understanding that your agency exists. How are you finding the process of building that brand awareness and getting people, I guess, marketing yourself to your audience?
Yeah, and I mean that is difficult because, for example, in London or in Manchester, like I said before, you could just go online and speak to these people. But in small businesses in Sunderland, it's slightly different because they're not very online, if you know what I mean. It's more in
Mhm.
person. And that's why we thought if we were to go and get ourselves out there, we'd have to go and get ourselves out there in the more old-fashioned sense of actually going to these places.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal, but it's what has to happen. And especially with us being so young, I can imagine it is hard to build a sort of awareness, especially when it's harder to trust younger people. But in this sort of business, if you see younger people, we've grew up around technology.
Yeah.
So I suppose they sort of think these kids must know what they're doing. especially when we show them our past results. But building this sort of awareness is especially difficult in a sort of place where not everything's online. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's just something we have to put up with. And I'd say we've still brought our awareness up quite well.
Yeah, I think everyone fights with that. I have worked for the last few years with a lot of kind of B2B businesses. So typically, our audience has a business owner, the person who's making the decision, that's slightly older and is probably not as engaged on social, especially not like Instagram and the places that I would love to put energy and effort into posting. It just
Yeah,
doesn't make sense for us. So instead, we had to make a few changes and kind of test things and use email and use LinkedIn and use some of these different approaches to get ourselves in front of our intended audience so that they knew we existed. Once we got past that point of kind of knocked on every door I knew of and then
yeah,
didn't know where else to go from there, especially now with the team in place, I don't want to
yeah,
be worried about like how am I going to bring in the next customer, right? So it almost feels like it's a moving thing. Like that over time, your tactics, your approach will
yeah,
slightly weave and change to suit the season of your business. And I think there's something to be said for leaning into where your ideal customers are, is what we do as marketers, right? Like for our customers, we're going to tailor our approach to suit where their ideal client is. And sometimes we can be, I guess, a little bit blinded by our own businesses as social media managers and marketers, that we love social media, we love Instagram, we love these platforms, and we want to use them, even if they're not always the best fit. So I love that awareness of your own approach and your own customer to know
and
that actually, no, you're so welcome, that maybe it isn't the best route for you to be on social, spending hours creating your own content, and actually can we target them elsewhere and get quicker, better results there and
yeah.
review things as you go.
Yeah, because when you look at our Instagram, we've been around for about 8 months now, I think. And we've got 5 clients, but we didn't get 5 clients through Instagram. We've got 2 posts. And our posts are sort of not for other businesses to see, but sort of for us to look back on and think, oh, we did this and we've done this and we did this.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort of more to build awareness, but not for other customers, for other sort of people. And I can imagine you sort of doing the same thing. Now, I'm not 100% sure what kind of businesses you manage, but I can also imagine so just so businesses see, so that other people see and recognize who you are and what you do. And that's sort of what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If I were to look back at like our best performing posts as an agency, there will always be an award was won or a client had these incredible results. They're always announcements, they're always celebrations that we're sharing rather than it
Yeah,
being like the more sales orientated or the more
yeah,
problem awareness orientated posts. They're great and they have their place and we put them out there. But yeah, in terms of what's performed well and what gets us raved about, it's always going to be the like exciting updates. So in terms of then anyone else watching this who is in a similar set of shoes to you and is a young entrepreneur that are just getting started, they're like binge watching those YouTube videos about like getting set up as an agency, what would be your advice to them? What would be some of the takeaways that you think you didn't see, you didn't know you were walking into when you were getting started with this?
that's a good question. My advice to those people would be to not overthink it. I like to explain this in sort of a step process. When me and my friend were doing businesses back in the day, we wanted to go from step 1 to step 10. We wanted to go from nothing to 100 clients. No, you've got to go from step 1 to step 2. And you see these YouTube videos, how to make $10,000 a month doing this, doing that. Look, that's going from
In
step
two
1.
weeks. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, do not think of it like that. And that's my biggest piece of advice. Business doesn't have to be that complicated if you focus on going from step 1 to step 2. Step 1 to step 2. Has your mum got a business? Has your mum's friend got a business? Has anyone who your
Yeah.
family know got a business? Has anyone who your friends know got a business? Don't know who's your friend's mum. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
there any sort of close links where you can be like, hi, I'm this person's son, I'm this person's friend, I'm this person's mom's son's friend. Like, you know, it's completely
I know I'm
stupid, but
with you. It's not stupid at all. one of my, I'll let you continue, but just to prompt that, like, that's not stupid in the slightest. One of my active agency clients that I work with now was my first ever retainer client that I ever signed on an ongoing basis. And she is my best friend's mum who runs a
Yeah,
business. So it
exactly,
is, it's very
exactly.
valid.
Exactly. And that is literally going from step one to step two. And that is exactly how people go. You don't go from one client to 100 clients overnight. It's just not how it works. And you go from step one, you get your first client, you work hard for that client, you get them amazing results. Then you go to client two and you say, look, client two, client one, I did this, this, and this. Is this something you'll be interested in? Yes. And then it should just snowball effect, work really hard at it, and then you will get the sort of step 10 and those little steps, which I'm sure like you've been around for a lot longer than us. We're still a lot further back and we've got a lot more hard work to do, but just sort of keep working at it. Don't overcomplicate the clients. You don't have to reach out to big, huge businesses asking to do their social medias. No, just start small. It could even be for someone who's a one-man business. Like my mum's friend makes flowers and she does sort of floristry. If I was to start out, I'd go to her and I'd say, look, obviously I'm not going to charge that person loads because it's only her. And I'd be like, for this much a month, we'll do this, this, and this, and we'll manage your social media. Then from that, you can derive some sort of analytics. Look, she used to get 10 views per reel. Now she gets 300 views per reel, 1,000 views per reel. And also from that, you can get a sort of review from that person. Oh, he did this and he did that, and they did this for me and they did that for me. I used to have no idea what I was doing. Now I've got this, now I've got that. Go to business too. I've got this review, I've done this and I've done that.
Mhm.
Much more likely to bring you on instead of just going to that business without doing any work before and saying, well, I can do this, I can do that. You're going to be like, proof? No.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And for those of you watching, I just want to add to that, that if you're struggling to get that first client, if there isn't anyone in your network that you can think of that you know, the best use case can be your own. Like if you can build your own socials and show that, like, look, I've done this. I've seen people do it effectively where they've built like food and drink social accounts that have nothing to
Yeah.
do with their marketing agency, but they've just built a really great like food review account and then they use that as their analytics and their
Yeah.
case study. You can use anything, but if you love this, you've got to learn it. And the best way to do it is getting hands-on with it.
Absolutely. And I'd just like to add to that, before we even got our first client, in 2021, I believe, my mum had a food page and it had 4 followers and she didn't know what to do. 3, 4 months, 3, 4 months. No, because this was in lockdown, so it would have been more 2020. I got it to 4,600 followers. She was getting 200, 300 likes per post, and this wasn't
Nice.
even reels. And she was loving it. Then when I went to my first client, look, I've got my car page. We get this many views per reel. I've
Hmm.
also got this person's page who I've run. And I didn't even say it was my own mother. I just said it was someone else's page. And
Hmm.
building up sort of rapport early on, even if you're doing it for free, just building up some sort of like traction, something that you've done and that you can do for others, and then showing them it instead of just telling them it will make such a difference when it comes to getting new clients.
One of the things I always tell my clients that are social media managers that I coach is that like your proposal should go over with 2 case studies that are relevant, maybe not the same industry, but a similar business model, something that can align. So yeah, I think that'll work great and it's good advice for people getting started. One last question before you go. How do you approach the kind of setting goals and measuring the success of your business in the context of everything else that you're trying to juggle?
Yeah.
So, and we're not looking at, okay, we want to sign at this many new clients per month. How do you keep track of everything and like make sure that you're still on track with everything?
Yeah, and I mean, it is challenging, especially at this time, but it's only short term. A levels will be done in a few months, and then I'll have more time to sort of delegate all these different things. But timing is sort of having a routine, sticking to the routine, and then buying a little diary or something. I mean, I've got a diary in the kitchen and just sort of thinking, right, okay, it's this time now. I need to do this, 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 and this. It's this time now. I need to do this, 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 and this. And then writing in the sort of notes section, this week I've got to do da 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 da. And just sort of trying to manage it all out, but also you got to keep it realistic. And that's something I
Yeah.
fell victim of because I ended up like carrying work over from Monday to Tuesday.
From like 3 weeks ago.
Right. By the rest day on Sunday, I had about 7 hours of revision to do, which I was just never getting
Yeah.
done. Then it's also so important to take a bit of time to also relax. But it is hard to manage at this time, but it's only short term. And with a little bit more organization, which is something that I've personally never been that good with, yeah, it's certainly like it does help and it is possible.
So you would say for yourself, then it sounds like the biggest goal is the balance of it and splitting the time equally.
Yeah, definitely. And I
That
mean,
makes
I say
sense.
it's hard for me, but my friend, he's got he's got to go to the gym every day. He's got to work all night. He's got to work all day through A levels, and he's got to come with me, for example, to shoot content or run the social media. He specializes more on the TikTok side of things. I've personally never been like a huge fan of TikTok, so naturally I don't really know as much as he does. But
Mhm.
Instagram and Facebook, that's sort of a bit more of my field. So he's got to do way more work.
Yeah. Okay, so for all of those kind of watching that would love to connect further, where can people find you? Where's the best place to connect?
The best place to connect would probably be our Instagram page, which is abdb_management. And also, if our email will be in our bio, but it's abdbmanagement@gmail.com. And that's basically all the places you can find us at the minute.
Bro. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time and getting to pick your brain, especially knowing that you've got your nan's party later on. I'll let you go and get ready.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. This is
You're
obviously,
so welcome.
well, not obviously, it's one of my first podcasts and it's absolutely surreal to be honest. Like, it's crazy. I can't believe I'm on it, to be honest, but thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's been a joy to have you. It's been really fun to chat, and I can't wait to share this with everybody.
Yeah, same. Thank you very much.
No worries.